Welcome to This Explainer. Look, we're going to skip the usual fluffy introductions today and jump straight in to what I consider a massive paradigm shift for e-commerce founders and operational leaders. Today, we're zeroing in on a real, actionable guide to improving your brand consistency. Specifically, we're going to unpack the core operational habits that actually make that consistency possible in the real world. If you want to build a brand that truly lasts, the concepts we're outlining today are absolutely essential. Okay, let's start right here with this idea. Because so many founders, and maybe even some of you watching, mistakenly believe that vanity metrics, sheer size, and massive scale are what ultimately impress buyers. There's this incredibly pervasive myth in our industry that if you just look big enough, if you have the widest product range, the biggest warehouses, or literally the loudest marketing, customers are just going to automatically trust you and hand over their money. But the data from consistently high-performing brands tells a completely different story. Customers actually respond way more strongly to your discipline than they do to your sheer size. So I want you to ask yourself this right now. Are you completely exhausting your team just chasing scale? Because honestly, chasing that growth at all costs illusion might actually be destroying your brand consistency from the inside out. When a business tries to scale way too fast without the right operational foundation, things just inevitably start slipping through the cracks. And what happens next? Your team gets completely burned out trying to keep up with the daily chaos, putting out fires left and right, and your customers are left with an experience that feels erratic and frustrating instead of reassuring. All right, let's get into section 1, the myth of scale, and why bigger isn't always better. Think about the stark contrast between a scattered, large business and a trustworthy small brand. Because a smaller brand has clear messaging, consistent quality, and highly organized execution, they simply feel more trustworthy to a buyer. Just think about what disorganized execution actually feels like from the buyer's perspective. It's like ordering 3 items and getting 3 completely different tracking numbers, 2 of which don't even work, and then they arrive in mismatched, flimsy boxes over a span of 2 weeks. Even if that larger business is pulling in millions in revenue and has massive global warehouses, if their execution feels inconsistent and fragmented to the customer, they instantly lose that crucial element of trust. Organized execution beats a massive but disorganized footprint every single time. Which leads us perfectly into section 2, visible discipline and what customers actually notice. We really need to redefine this word discipline. We aren't talking about discipline as some sort of rigid corporate punishment or a lack of creative freedom. Not at all. We're defining it as delivering a predictable, comforting experience that actively strips away your customer's purchasing anxiety. Put yourself in the shoes of someone ordering a last-minute birthday gift. Their anxiety is high, right? Well, when a customer knows exactly what to expect from you and you deliver on that expectation flawlessly, their purchasing anxiety drops to zero. That is the true power of operational discipline. Let's break down the actual hallmarks of this visible discipline. First up is intentional product selection. This means your catalog feels carefully curated. It's not just a random, scattered assortment of items thrown at the wall to see what sticks. Every single product makes logical sense within the ecosystem of your brand. Second, consistent communication. The tone of your marketing emails perfectly matches the copy on your website, which perfectly matches exactly how your customer support team speaks to people. It's one unified voice across the whole board. And third, a completely reliable customer experience from the very first click to the final delivery. This means the physical unboxing experience feels just as premium and polished as the glossy Instagram ad that originally caught their attention. When every single part of the business reinforces the exact same high standard, believe me, customers take notice immediately. And this is a huge takeaway. When communication and quality are reliable, buyers feel confident because they literally sense that control behind the scenes. They don't need to see your warehouse inventory systems or your back-end routing software to know that you have your house in order. That feeling of invisible control translates directly into buyer confidence. In fact, here's a fascinating bit of consumer psychology for you. A single, perfectly seamless return process actually builds more long-term customer loyalty than a flawless initial purchase. Crazy, right? Why? Because when something goes wrong and your operational discipline easily corrects it without causing the customer an ounce of stress, it proves undeniably that you are the one in control. So, how do we actually get there? That brings us to section 3, building core operational habits, where we focus on fixing internal execution. Look, you simply cannot fake visible discipline. It has to stem from these specific operational habits. Number 1, you must clarify your priorities. If your team doesn't know the core goal for the quarter, they're going to inevitably optimize for all the wrong things. Get everyone on the exact same page. Number 2, you have to stabilize your processes. This means moving away from that dangerous tribal knowledge, where only one specific employee knows how to properly process a complex refund. You have to document it and standardize it so things run predictably no matter who is on shift. And number 3, your team makes vastly better decisions when you stop constantly reacting to every single fire and start moving deliberately. For example, instead of allowing a chaotic flood of frantic Slack messages to derail your team every time a customer has a unique issue, you implement a clear, asynchronous ticketing system. Suddenly, the panic just disappears. The issue gets triaged, routed, and solved methodically. Moving deliberately means acting with intention rather than panic. When you use those specific steps to stabilize your processes, this deliberate execution acts exactly like compound interest in finance. Think about how compound interest steadily multiplies wealth over time. Well, in operations, every single time a customer has a reliable, predictable experience with your brand, it's basically a deposit into the trust bank. Now, this isn't some overnight growth hack. It's a foundational operational habit. But day by day, transaction by transaction, that trust compounds. Over time, that compounded customer trust becomes a massive, unshakable competitive moat that your disorganized competitors simply will not be able to replicate. All of this internal heavy lifting drives us right to Section 4, the sustainable growth payoff. This is the ultimate reward for dependability. Here are the actual, tangible results of building those dependable operations. When customers interpret your business as highly disciplined, their buying anxiety drops. Because your internal processes are incredibly stable, their external expectations are consistently met. And the ultimate result of all of this? Their willingness to purchase from you again absolutely skyrockets. Why do customers come back? Because you simply do what you say you're going to do every single time. Trust grows organically from that exact reliability. When you really put chaotic expansion and disciplined execution side by side, the difference is just stark. Your competitors are going to exhaust their entire operational teams chasing short-term attention, temporary viral spikes, and totally unsustainable scale. Listen, scaling broken, chaotic processes is an absolute nightmare that just leads to high employee turnover and ruined reputations. But by focusing entirely on disciplined execution and strong operational habits, you create truly scalable, sustainable growth. Disciplined execution scales far more effectively because your foundation doesn't just buckle and break under the pressure of increased order volume. So I'm going to leave you with this final vital question to ask your team as you plan your next move. Will you choose the exhausting path of chaotic expansion, just hoping that size alone is going to win? Or will you choose to forge the disciplined operational habits that build sustainable, undeniable customer trust? That choice dictates not just the size of your business, but the actual strength and longevity of your brand. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take these insights straight back to your operations team today.